given that there are now arrest warrants for these Israeli officials, would they be welcome to participate in the General Assembly here at the United Nations? The UN is sovereign territory with its own police force. Would the UN be required, and would they arrest these officials if they came to the UN?
First of all, I don't want to get into hypotheticals, but let's make it clear, just on our colleagues here in security, they're here to keep us safe, to keep the building safe. They're not here to arrest people, right? So I mean, they don't. That's their function. So let's keep it at that. Any travel by anyone who's indicted by the ICC would also involve the issue involve the state in which UN conference or UN headquarters are located. Margaret.
Continuing on ICC, now that the arrest warrants have been issued for Mr. Netanyahu and Mr. Gallant, and the third individual who's probably dead, in the past, the whole issue of the Secretary-General or UN officials dealing with indicted or convicted individuals, how would these arrest warrants affect your ability for senior officials to speak with Netanyahu and Gallant?
The issue of our contact with persons subjected to an arrest warrant remains the same. It's outlined clearly in the public document that was issued by the then Secretary-General in 2013, which is the rule is that there should not be any contacts between UN officials and individuals subject to arrest warrants, but the guidelines also clearly recognize that such contacts, especially by senior officials of the organization, may be required to address fundamental issues, operational issues, and our ability to carry out our mandates, including vital matters of security. So contacts can be had, they need to be limited, and there is also a procedure through which we advise in writing the the office of the ICC that these contacts are had.
And could I ask on Sudan? You mentioned about the flights. So just to be clear, these are UNHAS flights?
UNHAS flights,
that
yes.
resumed.
Yeah.
And so there haven't been any at all for 19 months?
Yeah.
And is that because of like fear of getting hit by a bullet?
The security situation.
But the authorities in Port Sudan would have allowed it. It wasn't some sort of a objection by them. It was just a security.
I think there were a lot of factors involved in getting flight clearance in a country that's involved in a civil conflict.
So does that mean that DSS has decided that the situation is calm enough now for flights?
There's been clearance for these flights once a week.
And just could I have one more on the paternity issue you mentioned? So you said most of these cases are unsolved or unresolved.
Yeah.
Why is that? I mean, can't they just do a DNA test on the
part of it
soldier?
is involves, it's not only obviously the recognition of paternity, but it's the payment of what's the word?
Like child support?
Support, thank you. The payment of child support. Obviously, we can't do any of this without the active cooperation of member states. Some member states are more cooperative than others. It involves also national judicial system. It's a very complicated and complex issue, but in a sense it shouldn't be, because it should just be about men recognizing their responsibilities. But we have to go through a lot of judicial hoops for that. I would encourage you to look at the website. I looked at it this morning. It's very in-depth and very telling.
But does that include, because we know from past situations that some of the cases are not consensual, that they're SEA related. So if it's a case of a potential rape or SEA, would the member state be allowed to object to their person being tested or DNA tested or something for paternity?
Let me put it this way. I mean, every case is different. Obviously, these men go home. They are under the responsibility of their, whether if they're still in the military, or just under their national judicial system, and each one works separately. What we want is for people to own up to their responsibilities.